Russia, Russia, Russia is the line. And that's what the corporate Democrats are going to cling to. Because what are they going to say? What are they going to say? We're corporate whores. We're at the behest of the military-industrial complex now. We are pro-surveillance of you. We don't care about you. We don't respect you. Vote for us.
In the annals of time, riding social forces as they crest and crash onto the shores of history, some would-be heroes stumble but manage to recover their breath. Others are reduced to the flotsam and jetsam of nostalgia. These others are our subjects. They are the vanquished, 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 vanquished.
Hello and welcome to The Vanquished. Anders J. Lee here with my co-host Freddie G.
So happy to be here.
And we are joined by a good friend of ours, John F. O'Donnell, comedian extraordinaire.
Hello, boys.
Hello. Thanks for coming out.
Yeah, for sure. This is cozy.
Yeah.
We got a cozy setup.
The Vanquished couch. It's a nice green sort of, it has a color of, it's a pretty color, but it's also a color of failure in a sense.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it failed to be very green. Also, I said hello, but I meant to say aloha.
That's right. The person we're talking about today, the contestant, if you will, the candidate, Tulsi Gabbard, who always, instead of saying hello, says aloha. I did hear a podcast today where she said it in a way that this was like masterful. It was conceivably both hello and aloha. It was like aloha, you know?
Oh, man. Yeah, she's not...
Aloha?
It was, yeah, she says aloha, but the way she said it was like, oh.
Yeah.
Which is impressive.
She does have an Elizabeth Holmes voice, so yeah, that's an issue with her.
Yeah. And she's relevant. Obviously was just confirmed as the Director of National Intelligence. Often you get presidential cabinets with 2 or 3, sometimes 4 or 5 people who have run for president in the past and are very bitterly waiting there. They got passed. They didn't get a real job like president or vice president, so now they have to be secretary of something. Usually that doesn't lead anywhere else. That's like the height of their career, and I think in all likelihood, could be wrong, in all likelihood this might be Tulsi's zenith. But why don't we start out our first exposures to Miss Gabbard? I know for me, it was about 8 years ago, I think now. Yeah, 8-9 years ago when she endorsed Bernie Sanders in the early 2016, stepped down at a role in the DNC and stepped out on the Democratic establishment, endorsed this guy Sanders. That was a big shockwave for a lot of people to have, someone kind of from the establishment, or so it seemed, endorsing Bernie. And I thought at the time she should be his running mate. Were he to somehow get the nomination, they should run together. What about you guys? When was the first Tulsi exposure?
Well, yeah, I mean, she was DNC leadership. They brought her in. Vice chair, yeah. And so she was being groomed by the corporate Democrats, by the establishment Democrats, to be this rising star. She was this rising star. But then she saw how the DNC was undermining Bernie Sanders' campaign at every turn and, chopping him off at the knees. And so she resigned and endorsed him and really, really stood her ground. And yeah, I totally thought that she should have been his running mate at the time. It was, yeah. And then, yeah.
And what about you, Fred?
Oh, yeah, so I watched her in the debates. I've always found her incredibly off-putting. I don't like the way she talks. She doesn't sound like she wrote her own words. She had some weird quality, and I did kind of think like maybe she was a foreign agent based on how weirdly she talked, though I don't necessarily think that right now.
And this was more when you were in your lib phase.
I was more of a lib, yeah. I was supporting Warren at the time. I think this is like the 2019 debates. Yeah, I wasn't that lib.
Fair enough.
But yeah, I mean, even no matter wherever I'm on the spectrum, yeah, Tulsi Gabbard is off-putting to me.
Well, you brought up a good point about her, which I've thought about a lot today, is that her delivery very monotone. So she's not a comfortable, charismatic speaker. And it's odd because there's this cognitive dissonance between that performance and her politics, which are kind of all over the map. Like, she's a very unique, sort of heterodox political figure, but delivers like she's, kind of a milquetoast, run-of-the-mill, I guess, Democrat or Republican at this point. She's been both. But I don't know. You have a theory about why she is this way.
Yeah, so I found things that are more provable than the Russia stuff. Okay, number one, she was homeschooled. Okay, I just blew your mind. She has the most homeschooled energy of any political figure. Just complete, complete. Like, I was in a classroom with one. My parents told me what was true, and I'm saying it to you. She has very homeschooled energy.
Interesting. And this is in Hawaii, of course. With do you know from what parent? Her dad or her mom?
It's interesting because they were both in education. No, I don't.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe they both did a little bit of it. I guess whoever was home.
Well, her father was in politics. He was like a notoriously conservative, like anti-LGBT sort of guy. And then she initially was that, but then she kind of changed her opinion on that sort of thing. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. At the time, 2016... what she did was very subversive. She basically totally just walked away from being a corporate Democrat. At the time, I really respected that, And then also in those 2019 debates, the way that she took out Kamala Harris was just exceptional.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? She that was the corporate candidate. That was all of the Hillary money was put behind Kamala Harris. She was their person. And Tulsi Gabbard essentially single-handedly, called her out on her bullshit cop behavior when she was, when she was attorneys general in California, and all the crazy shit she did, keeping people in prison for longer than their sentences, all sorts of stuff. She that was also awesome,
Yeah, no, she's definitely made some good enemies, I think.
I do think in hindsight, Kamala's pretty easy to take out. So I appreciate. Yeah,
but at the time, fair enough.
But at the time, people were attacking her if they were going to attack her. I mean, she was a non-entity basically in 2019, but she, wasn't getting a lot of flack from candidates on the left. There was scrutiny, but from the public, but to have an actual candidate attack her from that angle, I think was unique.
It really hurt her campaign. It really knocked her out.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. I remember after that, Harris was giving an interview. I think we mentioned this on the Harris 2020. I'm hesitant to call it the Harris 2020 episode, the Harris 2019 presidential campaign episode, where she, after that debate, she's like, well, I don't want to seem immodest, but I am a top tier candidate, and Tulsi is not. But if you look at the polls, like, how are you defining top tier? Because you're both kind of in the same boat there.
Only one of them ends up with with delegates. So
yeah. But I know, Fred, you dug into her religious background, which is very unique.
Yeah, she's in a cult. Okay, yeah, she is the political Tom Cruise. Okay, she's in this thing called the Science of Identity Foundation, which is basically the Hawaiian version of Scientology, and it's started by this guy. His name is Chris Butler. Now, this religion is a little bit Hinduish, but he is very white, Chris Butler. And don't worry, this is very good for being in American politics. They hate Muslims. He says this: the Mohammedan philosophy, Islam, is so full of violence. It's so low class. It's so Mickey Mouse. It's so violent. You're completely allowed to kill infidels.
And this is a screenshot from a YouTube video where he's wearing, I don't know if that's cloves of garlic over his neck or flowers or something.
It looks like Hawaiian lei, but yeah, it's made of garlic. Yeah, the religion is it's both anti-Muslim and anti-vampire, which is not good. But the vampires come from where my people come from, Eastern Europe. So yeah,
yeah, her whole Islamist terrorist insanity is really interesting because she's like. Yeah, I mean, she likes this. She says she's anti-war, but when it comes to certain wars, she's very pro-war.
Right. Yeah, she'll always say regime change wars is the problem with the establishment. But it's a sleight of hand in a way to throw a bone to anti-war Americans, but also let non-regime change wars continue, drone strikes, acts against basically any war against a non-state actor or military action. She's a lot more flexible with.
That's her thing. She says that regime change wars thing so much. Like if you play like a drinking game, there's one Rogan episode she does, and you would have taken like 13 shots in 12 minutes, and she's just constantly saying it. I know I get into that too. That might be like a neurodivergent thing or something. I don't know if either of us have been diagnosed, but she has some kind of quality where she gets stuck on certain language and just repeats it.
Well, yeah, I think it goes to her ideology because she, as we'll get to, has a particular view of the world that I think is informed by religion and also life experience and military service, etc. But yeah, regime change wars. So I mean, most wars are, in all fairness, regime change wars. Not all of them. She would be, in that sense, pro War of 1812, for instance.
Oh, yeah.
Impression of seamen, not overthrowing a government.
She's very George H.W. Bush, honestly. Yeah, he's like he likes a war, but no regime change.
There you go. I wonder what she said about the Gulf War. I mean, that was against a state. So, she's more likely to go after a quote-unquote warlord or something.
And she was like 10 maybe when it happened. Yeah, she was pretty young because I was 8, so she was like 10. But I mean, maybe it was her inspiring thing. Maybe that's her first memory.
Yeah. But yeah, it is. I thought she was like generally Hindu, but it is like a very particular sect that's, it is a white guy, in all fairness. Chris Butler, I think you said his name was.
Yeah, let me give a little more on that.
Sure.
Yeah, so it's an offshoot of Hare Krishna. And they're Hindu, but they seem to be like monotheistic. They worship Vishnu, and there's ways she can talk about it where she can kind of make it seem kind of Christian, so she can kind of play to the Christians a little bit. But yeah, they don't like Muslims and they don't like gays. That is definitely a part of the religion. So they hate the same thing that the Christian right hates. So that is helpful for her.
Yeah, and she kind of will say things that are plausibly Christian, right? So depending on what audience she's speaking to, she'll talk about God and not mention which God she's talking about.
Yeah, I hope God loves us unconditionally. She says hope comes from God loving us unconditionally. Yeah, and it doesn't matter if that God's name is Vishnu or Jesus. A big question with her is we know she's not white, and then she's Hindu. You're like, oh, is she Indian? And she's not Indian at all. She's mostly white European ancestry. She has, like, her dad is part Samoan, so she's somewhat Samoan. She's a woman of color, but yeah, she's not Indian at all.
Interesting.
She was like the perfect woman of color for the corporate Democrats.
Yeah.
She was, and a veteran.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, she was checking all of these boxes for the corporate Dems, and then, she didn't go that way. And then she was like, kind of a progressive for a while, and now she's in the Trump camp. She's been all over the map.
Yeah. Yeah, but like you said, perfect for Democratic establishment, and that's kind of the way I think her vibe feels like. Who the Democrats are putting forward now, and their media figures are trying to be like, these are the next rising stars.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, this generation of politicians, I think more so on the Democratic side, just has zero charisma.
Yeah.
Even if they check certain boxes, they're just vapid, like, they're in it for all the wrong reasons, and that's like everybody. There's this entire generation like that, and that's why Joe Biden, even though he had those politics, at least he was like an authentic and like a good performer. We don't have any good performers, and she seems definitely in that mold. And she was trotted out in 2012. That was kind of her introduction to the national stage. She spoke to the DNC in Charlotte of that year and was introduced by Nancy Pelosi, who called her an emerging star.
So yeah, she's not even a congressman at this point. She's been nominated. I guess in Hawaii, if you're the Democratic nominee, you're going to win. But she's been nominated only. She gets to speak at the convention, and then she gets to be DNC vice chair.
Yeah. And she talks about military service, gets some cheers, talks about how women do military service, and even in America, we deploy moms and grandmas, which is maybe not something to, like, brag about. It doesn't instill patriotism in me. I don't know if people are excited about grandmas getting sent to war to fight ISIS at that point.
Yeah, it'd be weird. Yeah, how'd your grandma die? Oh, fighting ISIS.
But this is a key question with her. What are her core beliefs? Because, as you said, she used to be kind of progressive coded, and then she's turned, So I think there is something authentic there. There's got to be because if she weren't, then she would have just gone that establishment path. So there's clearly something deep down there. It's just really idiosyncratic, I think, and it comes out like a generic politician, but again, it's this weird contrast where she's saying stuff that's just all over the place, but her cadence and her delivery makes it seem like she's phony. But I do think she actually believes stuff, and I think her foreign policy makes some sense when you consider her religious background, the Islamophobia, but also being in the military. Because you learn different like schools of thought for like foreign policy if you're studying that stuff at a place like West. I forget, where'd she go to college?
She did go to officer candidate school at some point. She was the first woman to graduate. I don't think it was West Point. I can't remember the name of it.
But a place like that, you learn different schools of thought. You learn basically liberalism, which is what most of our leaders sort of believe in a foreign policy lens, liberalism. But then there's also realism, which is the idea that nations have their own interest. They act as individuals. It's sort of a Hobbesian view of the world, and that the best thing a country can do in terms of foreign policy is just think of its own national interest. That's why many of them are like pro nukes. I'm not saying she is, but many of them are like, they think like the world is just a giant Western standoff, and that's like a good thing. But realist foreign policy makes a lot of sense with her, and it kind of clicks when she has the religious oddities, and then she goes through the military, sees the disastrous effects of war, but she still is patriotic. And in a way, it's very simpatico with Trump, right? He's extremely nationalistic, very patriotic, not afraid to use the empire to kill people and do terrible things, but he says he's not going to get us bogged down in another Iraq war, and that's kind of Tulsi's vibe, I think.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and the military has a big impact on her life. We'll talk about more in the Patreon episode. But she joins the military, she's 21, and then she just left the military to become DNI. So she's been in the military, at least in some capacity, for 20 years, most of the life that she can remember.
Right.
Because she's only like in her 40s now.
And I remember I think it was 2021 when Sheikh Jarrah happened in the West Bank. People were calling on her to speak out against it. And her excuse or her stands online said the excuse was, well, she's technically a military officer, so she can't comment on something like the occupation, even though she's just run for president.
And she does get in trouble with that another time. Yeah, I think of her as a Joe Rogan Democrat. Like she's against war or against like big wars, but wants to fight terrorism, wants to legalize drugs. And then is into like Islamophobia, homophobia, but not in like the weird off-putting way that the Trumpers are into it. Just enough that if they start bothering you with terrorism or pronouns, then she's going to step in and make sure you're not woke.
Right. Yeah, to give a little background on her and then their views on gay rights, for instance, her dad was a guy, Mike Gabbard, who was on the Honolulu City Council, was a state senator, and was an anti-gay activist who was like a vocal opponent leading the charge against gay marriage being legal there back in the 1990s, and had a nonprofit called Stop Promoting Homosexuality, and he had a radio show, too, where he would denounce LGBT individuals.
That's kind of a lady doth protest too much. If you got a radio show about it, yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, is it fair? I mean, let's say she's like pushing back and is like has anti-trans tendencies or something like that. I mean, she multiple times though has like made statements being like, look, this is what I was raised with. I felt this way. I no longer feel this way. I support gay marriage and stuff like that. It's like, is that something that we can forgive her for? You know?
Well, so I think...
or is she being disingenuous?
I think it's sort of disingenuous because she said that her change was not her personal beliefs on homosexuality, for instance. It was her political beliefs that, it's no longer the government's job to regulate that thing, but she personally opposes gay marriage, and I think that's been consistent, and now I think she's even walked back the political stuff.
Yeah. So recently, she's been better on gay marriage recently. Her dad even has come out and said now he's okay with gay marriage. He's still
really?
But she's very turfy. Her podcast is very against trans people. She had a bunch of she had like Riley Gaines on. We'll go through it, but she had like a bunch of episodes in a row just about like turf stuff. Yeah. So she's gone hard on the anti-trans stuff. As far as the rest of the LGBTQ spectrum, she doesn't really talk about it much. And yeah, I think everyone's kind of accepted gay marriage, just because it would be more trouble than it's worth for the homophobes to get rid of it.
Right, that's right. And Trump's Treasury Secretary is a gay man, so that is one. There. I don't want to say gay people have been completely assimilated, but it's certainly more so than trans people.
With a guy like Trump, that would affect him. Yeah, having to talk to a gay guy whenever he wants to deal with the financial matters, he wouldn't want to be fighting with them.
Yeah. But she is pro-environment, or at least was. No reason to think she's not still for environmental regulations, even as her administration guts them. But she started her career. I think her first office she ran for was based around water issues. Her campaign, which is huge in Hawaii. They've contamination, and military plays a role in that. But in 2013. She became the DNC vice chair. She's just started out in Congress. And Tucker Carlson would later say that she was considered a rising star there with the Democrats. And then she stopped towing the company line specifically on Syria.
Yes, it's a little bit earlier than what JFOD was saying. The Syria was kind of where she broke from the establishment even before Bernie, because that's I think that's 2014, 2015.
Yeah, 2013, I think too. Yeah, around the time she came in.
See, I thought that stuff was badass at the time. That she went down. Well, I'll tell you about it when we talk about the whole Russiagate stuff or whatever, if you want.
Yeah.
But,
absolutely.
But I mean, her and Dennis Kucinich went to Syria and saw that our government was arming all these groups, Yeah. And she came back and talked about it, and then she got labeled as like, an agent of Assad.
Right, and we should be able to speak with leaders of other countries, even if, I think, especially if they are enemies of the United States. The more diplomacy, the better. I don't know. What do you think, Fred, about the Syria question?
She's kind of all over. It's hard for me because I read this book called Assad or We Burn the Country, where basically they were trying to get rid of him, and he said, well, like, burn everyone's food, and they kind of eventually had to give in. And he gasped, people like, I just think of Assad as so bad, but then I'm sure the people fighting him or whoever America's supporting is bad also. And I just need to know more. But yeah, it's hard for me to be sympathetic to Assad.
I'm not sympathetic to Assad. He's a dictator for sure, but the gassing stuff was totally debunked as false flag.
Oh, okay.
Shit. You know what I mean? I mean, Aaron Mate did extensive journalism about that. So did Seymour Hersh, and he couldn't get his pieces published in America. He had to get them published in German publications and stuff like that. Like, so I mean, it's another one of those like atrocity propaganda things. I'm not going to be. I don't think Bashar al-Assad is a good leader, but obviously the vacuum is just going to be is going to be filled and is now filled by terrorist organizations.
Right, and the money, some of the money we were giving was like ended up going to Al Qaeda, and messy situation. Bad guy, also. Both of those things can be true at the same time.
When can I tell the story?
Let's do it now. Yeah. So, this brings us to one accusation Tulsi Gabbard gets a lot, that she is a Russian asset. She's bought and paid for by the Kremlin, and some of the meat, I guess, behind that theory comes from our man right here, John F. O'Donnell, has a harrowing tale about Tulsi Gabbard.
Damn, is he her handler?
Wild story.
Kind of. In her 2020 campaign, yeah.
Okay, so here we go. First of all, John F. O'Donnell, very publicly bipolar, have had manic episodes. One of the symptoms of mania is spending money recklessly. So one time when I was manic, I impulsively donated $1,000 to former Hawaii Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard's presidential campaign. And this is what I say. So I basically have this 8-minute story that I do on stage as a bit. I'll do a variation of that for you guys. So basically, I donated $1,000 to her campaign because at the time, she was the most overtly anti-regime change war candidate, and because we were supposed to be together. At least that's what I kind of thought at the time. And guess what happens if you donate $1,000 to Tulsi Gabbard's presidential campaign? You get a phone call from her mother. Carol Gabbard called me for real, Freddie.
You can ask for a hand in marriage then. Yeah, if you get the mother on the phone.
And because of the time I was such an exuberant Tulsi supporter with such a deep dive knowledge of her political history and presidential campaign, me and Carol talked on the phone for like 40 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah, I was like, Carol, I can't believe the way the mainstream media is treating Tulsi. She's a veteran, for God's sakes. This is ridiculous. She went down to Syria on a fact-finding mission and saw that our government, the CIA, was arming all sorts of terrorist groups like ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and al-Nusra. She then came back and introduced into Congress the Stop Arming Terrorist Act. That didn't even get out of committee. Are you kidding me? And now CNN is trying to paint her as being a Putin apologist and Assad puppet? Not cool. And then Carol was like, I know, it's crazy. Like, my manic ramblings resonated with her 100%. You know what I mean? And right around the time that I made this donation, it was right when the mainstream media, the corporate media, was making all of these unsubstantiated claims that the Russian propaganda machine was aligning itself behind Tulsi Gabbard. And maybe some of your listeners know that myself and Anders, I worked for this radical political comedy news show, Redacted Tonight, for close to 5 years, and I'm super proud of all of the work I did on that show. Also, it was predominantly funded by the Russian government. Whatever. So
we were actual Russian assets. Like, that's a label. I still wanted Twitter to put that in my put the bug in my profile. I couldn't get it.
Yeah.
No one's more evil than Rupert Murdoch. So.
Yeah. So it's like when the mainstream media was saying that the Russian propaganda machine was aligning itself behind Tulsi, I was like, wait a minute, that's bullshit. I work for the Russian propaganda machine, and that's not what's happening. I'll be goddamned if I'm going to let this Russiagate nothing burger narrative undermine Tulsi Gabbard's presidential campaign. And then what I say in the bit is like, for the record, I don't believe that Redacted Tonight was part of the Russian propaganda machine. I think that the show brilliantly used the platform it was given to amplify the voices of independent journalists and frontline activists, all while really telling the truth about what's going on in a very broken, whitewashed corporate media landscape. Also, those rubles always came in on time, baby. Thank you, Big Daddy Vladdy. Thank you, Big Daddy Vladimir Putin. He's a monster. All right. He's a monster. So is the U.S. and NATO. There's a lot of neo-Nazis in the Ukraine. I don't want to talk about it. So I really thought they were going to use this red baiting of Tulsi to undermine her presidential campaign. And if you're paying attention at the time, that's actually what they did. So I came up with like a manic plan to save her. I realized that I was going to create like a Russiagate breadcrumb trail for some corporate hack journalists to scurry down the rabbit hole of. And then when they got to the bottom of it, instead of finding the Russian propaganda machine aligning itself behind Tulsi, they were going to find me and feel ridiculous about themselves. So I realized when I made the donation, you could put anything you wanted in the name section. So I put Goofy Grapes. Because as all of your viewers know and listeners know, Goofy Grapes is the alias I created 14 years ago when I needed to temporarily take over control of the internet in order to keep the neocons from erasing evidence of their war crimes from YouTube. We all know this.
Goofy Grapes.
Because otherwise they were going to assassinate me.
Sounds very Hanna-Barbera.
Yeah, it does, right? And clearly it worked because I'm still here.
Yeah.
So for name, I put Goofy Grapes. For occupation, I put comedian. And for employer, I put Redacted Tonight. And I let that just sort of sit there and percolate.
Did you consider doing like a full fake profile? Like, because you just did the name, but you put your employer, and I assume your contact information as well, because
she had my
Carol,
number.
Yeah.
So, no, I don't know. It was just, Just the name was changed.
That's the funniest part.
And honestly, the origin of Goofy Grapes was like 1,000 years ago. This comedian was doing a character that was just so weird. He was like, he kind of like spoke in a really weird voice and had like wore like goggles and just looked like a very mentally unbalanced person. And he called himself Goofy Grapes, and I thought it was just so funny to like that. I was like, oh, if they really find out who like Goofy Grapes is, they're like, oh, this is the guy who is like, undermining American democracy or whatever. So that
wait, literally 1,000 years ago? You mean like early in stand-up comedy?
Early in stand-up comedy.
Okay,
like over like 15 years ago. But yeah. So that's what I put. I put Goofy Grapes, comedian, redacted tonight. Let that sort of sit there for a while. And there's the added bonus that because I put Goofy Grapes as my name, when Tulsi's mom, Carol Gabbard, called me, she did have to say, hello, is this the Mr. or Miss Goofy Grapes, who donated $1,000 to my daughter's presidential campaign.
She's like, this is going to be the worst call ever. And she loved it.
She loved it. And then, so like...
Did she ask about the name?
No, she didn't. She just said...
Straight to business. Right?
Straight to business. And I was like, I was like manic at the time, but it made like total sense to me that she'd be calling me because I was like, oh, I'm going to be like Roger Stone, but for Tulsi Gabbard. Like I'll be pulling the strings and aiding the campaign and consulting along the way through Carol in order to help Tulsi. Because we talked on the phone, like that first phone call was not our only phone call. We talked on the phone at least 4 more times.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And what I say in the bit, which is true, I go like, yeah, sure. I initiated all of those phone calls, but she answered every time and our rapport was undeniable. What I don't say in the bit is that at one point, like that, I don't say that we would also do, I would like check in with her. I'd be like, how are you doing, Carol? It's got to be stressful for you to have your mom have your daughter be running for president. And then also like we would like talk about how Tulsi did in her like Colbert appearance and how like she did in her CNN town hall and stuff like that. But anyway, cut to months and months later, I'm in and out of jail. I'm in and out of the hospital. And I get a phone call from Lee Camp, the host of Redacted Tonight. And he's like, hey man, do you want to hear how you became part of a national news story for a couple days? And I'm like, oh, fuck, what happened? And it's true. I'm going to pull this up. My manic plan worked. You guys are familiar with the Daily Beast, obviously.
Oh, sure.
This is from the Daily Beast, May 17th, 2019. Headline, Tulsi Gabbard's campaign is being boosted by Putin apologists. Second paragraph, donors her campaign in the first quarter of the year included Stephen F. Cohen, a Russian studies professor at New York University and prominent Kremlin sympathizer, Sharon Tennyson, a vocal Putin supporter who nonetheless found herself detained by Russian authorities in 2016, and an employee of the Kremlin-backed broadcaster RT who appears to have donated under the alias Goofy Grapes. Nice. It fucking worked. My manic plan manifested, and then what I say in the bit is like instead of having the intended consequence of protecting Tulsi, it had the unintended consequence of getting me fired from my job. Because like the network was not happy about getting like any sort of like, kind of like attention like that. You know what I mean? And there were other reasons I got fired too. But it's like, yeah. So, dude, the Russiagate narrative is total bullshit. All through, like top to bottom bullshit. I mean, the Democrats lost to an orange-faced game show host, and instead of looking inward and realizing why they did it, and admitting to their sins of being corporate warmongering whores, they decided to just blame it on Russia.
Yeah, and it's one of the fascinating things about watching them now is they have nowhere to go. There's no Russiagate they can try and cling to. It's they have to face their voters now who are mad.
Both of the parties are dumpster fires.
Yeah.
I do not see the Democrats as the anti-war party. They're more pro-war than the fucking psychotic Republicans. I'm sorry, they are.
It's great.
They've become... Neoconservatism has been rebranded as liberal interventionism. And it's crazy.
No, there's a clip later that I watched where we talk about Tucker Carlson has her on during the campaign this time, and they're talking the day that Dick Cheney endorsed Kamala. And they're like, these stupid neocons, yeah, we're against them. So they make Tucker Carlson look peace-like in this campaign.
Yeah, I mean, the Democrats would keep the Ukraine war going forever until every Ukrainian is fucking dead to fill the coffers of the military-industrial complex. That's the fucking Democrats.
Yeah.
You know? And the Republicans are going to fucking gut Medicaid. You know? It's like, what are we doing here?
Yeah. And yeah, I think that, kind of goes to Tulsi's worldview. She's called a Russian apologist because she wants to ease tensions with Russia. I don't think there's been any evidence that she's a Russian asset, but she's accused of being one just for the mere fact of wanting to negotiate a settlement in Ukraine and just hopefully, go back to, 10, 20 years ago, before there was just all this tension, which is, doesn't bring things in a good direction. So, she does, I think, deserve credit for being a little dovish on foreign policy, if not as dovish as I would like. And she also deserves credit, as we said, for 2016, when she steps out and endorses Bernie's candidacy. And she talks about it after he wins Michigan and says that she's concerned about the cost of war and that Hillary's going to continue the regime change wars.
Which she absolutely would have.
Yeah.
She absolutely would have. She wanted to do a no-fly zone in Syria ASAP. That was like day one.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, Tulsi in 2016 and then cut to now the DNI confirmation. Bernie Sanders votes against her.
Yeah. I mean,
not one single Democrat voted for her. Now, here's the thing. Say what you will. Is she going to do a good job? Is she going to be able to do anything in that position? Who fucking knows? But I watched some clips from the confirmation. She called out the intelligence community for their sins. She called them all out during the confirmation. That was pretty rare thing to see.
Yeah.
Somebody that is now confirmed as director of national intelligence that is not lockstep on board for everything that the CIA, NSA, et cetera, wants to do. That's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think as far as Trump appointments, she's one of the better ones, and it is a kind of contradictory that he would vote for Rubio and then not Tulsi.
Bernie.
Yeah,
Bernie fucking confirmed Marco Rubio.
Yeah, we've done. We know how much we hate Rubio.
But what is Bernie Sanders at this point?
Yeah, I mean, I will say, I think because people are accusing him of being disloyal to her or whatever, that he betrayed her. But I mean, she did run against him in 2020, as we'll get to, and then not endorse him when she dropped out. So I don't think there's much love lost at this point.
Yeah, but why? I agree. But why is Bernie Sanders endorsing Marco Rubio or voting for Marco Rubio?
I think he views it the same way I view Tulsi. It was that's the one sort of reasonable person in the room, with the closest thing to a reasonable person who can at least stop Trump from doing completely crazy things.
Yeah, I think the Democratic leadership, for some reason with Rubio, they were just we're not going to oppose it. Let's choose our battles. And Bernie was and they were like, Bernie, just go along. And I think he just didn't. He was like, okay, I'll choose my battles and I'll just go along with it. Not that I agree with it, but I think they just decided to kind of punt any kind of opposition.
Yeah, I don't think it was good. I don't think it really.
And
we've covered Rubio a lot. Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting. I mean, she called out the illegal surveillance. She called out, the war in Iraq. She called out Russiagate. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? She called them out for all of their bullshit in the confirmation hearing.
And they were
interesting.
They kept asking her about Snowden. They were hammering her on Edward Snowden. Was he a traitor? Member of the Vanquished, Michael, the guy from Bennett.
Oh, Michael
from Colorado,
Bennett, yeah.
Just mumbling. He's a big mumbler, but he was also screaming in the hearing. He was "This is serious. This is not a social media moment. Is Edward Snowden a traitor? Why can't you answer?" And it's I I genuinely think most Americans, even though they are so like partisan on this issue, I say partisan, but it's bipartisan. They're so animated about this issue, Edward Snowden, all these senators. If you ask the average American, they think that he should probably be pardoned. I would guess.
Oh, I'm big pro pardoning him.
Yeah, because like he technically broke a law, but they never mentioned the laws he was exposing being.
They broke the Constitution. We don't have a right to privacy anymore. Yeah, it's disgusting.
Yeah,
yeah. It's like 10 years, over a decade ago, and they're still hung up on that anyway.
Yeah, and there was popular support on the left and the right for Snowden when that stuff came out.
Yeah, Tulsi is our first subject who could listen to the episode even if we don't release it, because she's head of intelligence.
Well, in 2016, she got to put Bernie's name in at the 2016 convention, just the symbolic thing, and there was a faithless elector in Minnesota who, I didn't realize this, voted for Bernie for president and then Gabbard for vice president, but
was this one of you guys?
I would have done that if I was an elector. I don't know how this person got that gig, but they were immediately replaced as permanent, which just shows you how stupid and pointless the Electoral College is. If it's like we don't even go by the rules that it was initially intended for, these people were supposed to be independent-minded. I don't agree with that. I think it's an undemocratic system. But now it's just all predetermined. Like it's such a obviously ridiculous system. But after 2016, she's kind of positioning herself. It's hard to tell where she's going, but there's a article we read from Branko Marcetic about her, voicing some skepticism of the GLBT stuff we mentioned, and also her views on Islam. She is good though on the Restoring the Glass-Steagall Act, opposing cuts to entitlements, and she said at the time that Obamacare didn't go far enough, but she also had kind of a friendly relationship with, at least I don't know if she was a fan of Steve Bannon. He was a fan of hers, and there was kind of an affinity with Modi, who's now, of course, a big ally of Trump.
And there's still an affinity. Yeah, they met recently. Yeah. I mean, it's rare to have Hindu political figures in America. So
right. And for a while, Modi was banned from entering the United States because he oversaw anti-Muslim riots in the place he was governing in India at the time. And Tulsi called this a quote-unquote great blunder. And then when he was elected in 2014, she congratulated him, and then she helped arrange his trip to the United States. 2014, she says, he's a leader whose example and dedication to the people he serves should be an inspiration to elected officials everywhere. And on that trip, she speaks at an event with two leaders of the BJP, which is far right, if not fascist adjacent party. It's that's a problem. And also, she's talking about being a hawk on the war on terror. So she says, when it comes to the war against terrorists, I am a hawk, she says to the Hawaii Tribune Herald. Again, reiterates the counterproductive wars of regime change are what she's opposed to. So, in other words, Marcetic writes that she would continue the Obama administration's foreign policy, which was, drone strikes, right? Going after non-state actors in 7 different Muslim countries throughout the Middle East and North Africa, maybe even expand that. And that would also involve more intelligence gathering. So that's a real question when she's head of DNI. Is she going to, hopefully the domestic stuff, spying on Americans, she backs off of, but is she going to be pretty rah-rah on the foreign spying, at least when it comes to quote-unquote terrorists?
Yeah, and I think with this would be domestic, but that, what is it, Section 702 or something of the...
I don't know one.
The surveillance thing.
FISA, we're talking about?
Yeah, the FISA thing, where it's that's the warrantless surveillance of Americans. Yeah. And she may have she may have sort of been equivocating on that or backpedaling on that or something like that. So I don't know. And also it's like Director of National Intelligence. I'm honestly asking, is it a really powerful position? Do you actually have sway over CIA, assets and all CIA operations and the NSA and this huge, there's 14 intelligence agencies.
I wonder at this point, because it's such a massive, not even one bureaucracy, just all these different, often competing bureaucracies that are supposed to be doing the same thing. And my guess is the DNI's job is to just try and get their arms around it and explain what's going on to the president. So that is a very tall order to, if they're actually serious about this, go after the quote-unquote deep state.
Yeah, I guess on paper it seems powerful because all the agencies report into it. But then, what they actually can get done is more of a question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you go back to 2017, Steve Bannon was talking about how Trump should get her in the administration back then. And at that point, she was still a Democrat. So it didn't happen, but maybe that planted the seeds.
And the article says he held talks with her, so she did meet with Trump, at least according to the article.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Yeah, but then that makes it not one-sided.
Yeah. Her first Rogan appearance, September 2018. She's, at this point, done Rogan about 6 times, and they kind of move together ideologically. They've fluctuated throughout these meetings. She's called him a stalwart voice of truth. And you think they have just very similar in general vibes in politics.
They similar politics. They respect each other a lot. I find both very off-putting. They just demagogue against people. I don't like the way they operate. But they do make each other look good. He makes guests look good. She's her best when she's talking to him. She's good at answering questions, and he makes her very comfortable.
Yeah. She does have a cringe moment where she says, "I try to bring Hawaii's aloha to Washington."
Yeah, so aloha could mean like love or a vibe or something. She's always explaining it. Aloha is her second most used word after regime change war. I guess that's a phrase. But she'll say it, and it never comes off natural.
Yeah. And so this brings us to her 2019 campaign, where she, even though Bernie Sanders, who she supported in 2016, is running again, why does she do it? Why does she dip into the race? I guess maybe there's her supporters certainly said this at the time, that there's some areas where he was lacking, and it was kind of a way to keep him honest, but I was always pretty skeptical of that.
It is a little early for her to run too, okay? Because she's only a congressman. We've only one congressman has ever been elected president, James Garfield, and she's under 40, so she has plenty of time to run later. Bernie's obviously on the older side, but yeah, she puts her hat in the ring. I'm not sure if she wants to be more famous or she thinks only she can do certain stuff, but it is a little surprising she runs so early in her career.
And she does. I should point out, she does announce before Bernie. She announces in January. He announces in February. Actually, this day now, 6 years ago. I wish I didn't remember it, but I do.
Oh, wow.
It's painful.
I think, it seems like maybe it was like an exposure thing. Maybe there was part of it. Maybe she wanted to, parlay it into I guess it became, she was been a Fox contributor and shit.
Right.
Like that,
I mean, the thing is, there's very little downside to running for, if you're, especially if your career in Congress is over at this point, you might as well.
So she can run for re-election, and she basically doesn't because she's running for president.
Right. But, she wasn't going to move up in Hawaii politics. So you may as well just take a shot at being president, and you get a media career from that. You get name recognition. It brings you either success in, as we've seen with a lot of these guys, success in media or in administration. They'll pluck you and put you in one of those.
Did it have anything to do with Bernie endorsing Hillary in 2016?
Well, Tulsi also endorsed Hillary in 2016. Yeah.
Okay.
She did. She gave kind of a passive aggressive endorsement. She was like, "Well, given that there are no other options, I endorse Hillary Clinton."
Yeah.
It's too early for me to endorse Trump. I'll have time.
Yeah. That'll be next time around.
Yeah. But she does try to walk back some of the anti-gay gay stuff and say she believed things in the past that were wrong. And my friends helped me see that my past positions were against my values, my aloha. Being anti-gay violates aloha, apparently.
Yeah, and she does say, when we divide people based on who they are or who they love, all we're doing is adding fuel to the flames that perpetuate bigotry and hatred. She says that then, and then in the future she's going to do stuff like that with a lot of the TERF stuff.
Right. But yeah, her one of her main issue is regime change wars, but also the environment she talks about. I don't know if she was for the Green New Deal. But certainly worried about climate change, being in Hawaii, she's
got a very environmentalist vibe, but I don't know if she talks about specific policies. Anything I saw,
her main focus is really on foreign policy issues. She wants to rejoin the Iran deal, and that if we had war with Iran, it would be even worse than with Iraq. And on Afghanistan, this is kind of to be fair, I called her a realist, and the Iran deal was sort of a I don't know if realists would have supported that because it was like denuclearization. So to be in favor of that is fairly progressive of her, but she does, the realism really comes in. You thought on her Afghanistan.
Yeah, Afghanistan. Also, yeah, so I didn't write it because she's basically going back and forth with Michael Bennett, who you mentioned earlier, but he's just saying very standard talking points, so I kind of put together everything she said. She said, the Taliban was there long before we came in. They're going to be there long after we leave. And she's saying this in 2019, and it ended up being true. She says you can't, if you keep troops there, every country that's tried that has failed, which is completely true because it's happened to Russia and England. And then she says she splits up Al-Qaeda and the Taliban, which is interesting. She says Al-Qaeda attacked us on 9/11. That's why I and so many other people joined the military to go after Al-Qaeda, not the Taliban. You know who's protecting Al-Qaeda right now? It's Saudi Arabia.
There you go. Where she loses a lot of us, though, on the left, is in one of the early debates, the first debate. They're asked to raise your hand if you support getting rid of private insurance for a government-run plan. And I think there's two debates, right? And in one of them, Bernie and Kamala raise their hands. But Tulsi, when she's asked, does not raise her hand. Of course, Harris walks it back when she's like, I misheard the question.
Yeah, I don't have down which night she was in, but yeah, she doesn't raise her hand. She says something like, well, in Canada, they have private health care. But they have universal health care, but you're allowed some private insurance. She tries to say that the private insurance would be a small factor, but it is backing off a single payer.
Yeah. And then in the second debate, she's talks about Syria and gets the establishment mad at her, and she does not. She has issues qualifying for the third debate, even though she's the most searched for candidate on Google after the first two debates. But there's
didn't they change the polling? Didn't they change the rules or something on it?
Yeah, I can get into that. Yeah, so they made it. You need to be high enough in a certain poll, and they didn't have that many qualifying polls. And people like her and Cory Booker were complaining about it, and that they made it harder, and it filtered them out. But she has enough donors. She does get in the fourth and fifth debates, but yeah, the third debate she's not in, and then after the fifth she has trouble getting in again.
Right.
And there is a saying of maybe they're not picking enough polls to give them enough opportunities. Yeah, I find her in the debates. I mean, it's like I said, I found her not that good. I feel like she's just talking when she doesn't come off that well. But yet, like you said, she's very Googled, and then she does have a complaint where she says Google AdWords was disabled her account when people were trying to Google her, and that may have hurt her as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I couldn't quite get to the bottom of it. She tries to sue them, but it doesn't really go anywhere.
And at this point, too, you have, I think, 1/4 of the country is running for president in the Democratic primary. There's so many people running that they have to split up these debates, and it's hard to get your name out there, which is why it was so funny that she had the tete-a-tete with Kamala Harris, who tried to say she was the cool kid when she's doing about as well as Tulsi was. In the fifth debate, Gabbard is asked about foreign policy and goes to, and this is a perfect moment for basically every other candidate on the stage who's not Bernie Sanders to tee them up to rebut the quote-unquote Russian talking points and give the party line answer on foreign policy. And Kamala just kind of does she tries to do that with Gabbard, but it doesn't work out so
she does like what you call like an oppo research dump. She basically says like, well, you were critical of Obama, him saying that he wouldn't call it like Islamic terrorism or whatever. You spent 4 years criticizing Obama on Fox News. And then also Karras mentions the Steve Bannon thing. Let's see, what else did she mention? And then basically Harris is pivoting towards, I can bring the Obama coalition together. I'm the new Obama, not Tulsi. That kind of thing. And then Gabbard is going back at her about like, well, you want to continue the Bush, Clinton, Trump foreign policy. So they're going back and forth a little bit. I mean, I don't know that either of them is doing particularly well at this point. I don't know that either of them come off that strong. They just kind of go at each other a little bit, and then everyone moves on.
And this is where Gabbard brings up the weed stuff, or was that
that was in a different debate?
It was a different. Oh, so they tangoed twice. That's right.
They don't like each other. Yeah, that we talked about in the Kamala episode. To me, that was more about Kamala. So she helps destroy Kamala. We did cover that a lot in the Kamala episode.
Right, but she just totally points out what people have been talking about on social media and in America, and this was part of what doomed Harris's 2020 campaign from the start, is that she, at this point in America, weed has become accepted as like a legal substance. It's no longer like a fringe issue to say marijuana should be legal. Just a few years ago, it was a different story, and people like Kamala Harris were locking people up. And then to sort of accommodate herself to this new atmosphere, she's going on talk shows and joking, I think probably lying about smoking weed. I don't think she actually did.
Kamala partied. Oh yeah, in the 90s, so? Yeah, she partied. Yeah, she went. Remember we said she went to like the Versailles fundraising things. She was with what's his name, Willie Brown. Yeah. Kamala used to have a good time. Yeah, she was on a Trump jet when she was just like a random DA.
Okay,
she was on Trump's jet. Yeah,
maybe she did smoke a little weed. She seems like more of a drinker to me.
Oh, absolutely. Well, she's definitely a drinker. Yeah.
But
I think she's definitely a drinker, but I think she's probably smoked some weed.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, I don't want to give into the Jamaican
went on the Breakfast
stereotypes.
Club, right, and talked about that.
Yeah, but she also said that she listened to Tupac when she was in college, which was after or before he had died, or before he was popular.
She definitely had to say no to coke a lot at all those parties. Yeah. I don't know if she did coke, but she had to say no a lot.
Yeah. But Gabbard basically brings this into the debate, because this is not a question mainstream media is asking Harris, and points out you were laughing about smoking weed while you were locking people up, and that is part of what I do think helped end Harris's campaign. Yeah.
When did it happen? I guess this was, maybe I'm skipping ahead too much, but I forget the specifics of this, but Tulsi Gabbard did something and then got put on some no-fly list or something like that.
She mentioned something in the confirmation hearing about I have some notes on that later. Yeah.
Okay.
She gets put on some kind of list. Yeah.
Interesting.
It's called like the
no-fly list.
It's not. At least in this thing, they're not calling it that. And I think she's allowed to fly. But let me see. She says, hold on. She said, Russiagate. She says, just 24 hours. This is at her hearing recently. Just 24 hours after I criticized Kamala Harris, I was placed on a secret terror watch list called Quiet Skies.
Oh, is that real?
That is real. That is.
She really said that. I don't know anything about it. Also, if it's secret, how do you know about it? But yeah, it sounds so cool. And she says it at the confirmation hearing, which was just like a month before we recorded this or whatever, even less.
And this was because she was just voicing anti, sort of not the doctrinaire foreign policy.
Well, I mean, she's definitely campaigning against Kamala a little bit. Like I said, she goes on a show with Tucker, and they're calling Kamala a neocon. And all that kind of stuff. And then Tulsi in the hearing right afterwards, she does say, this is in her opening statement, by the way. She says, go to my X account to learn more about the spiritual path towards Hinduism. So yeah,
so this is 2024.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Okay. I was quoting from the hearing.
Gotcha.
I had it later in the notes.
It wasn't.
Yeah. Sorry for skipping ahead.
Oh yeah. Well, in the hearing was even in 2025. Yeah. But yeah. Oh yeah. The Quiet Skies thing was more recently. I don't know if she was on any list when she was in Congress, but she's still in Congress back when she's running for president.
Okay. Yeah. So Clinton does have another sort of famous dust up with Gabbard. She's on a podcast with David Plouffe, an Obama guy, and she says, I'm not making any predictions. This is before the 2020 election. She says, I'm not making any predictions, but I think they've got their eye, she's talking about Russia, on somebody who is currently in the Democratic primary and are grooming her to be the third-party candidate. She's the favorite of the Russians. They have a bunch of sites and bots and other ways of supporting her so far, and that's assuming Jill Stein will give it up, which she might not, because she's also a Russian asset. Strong words from Hillary Clinton.
Stein not even running in this election.
Yeah, she doesn't run in 2020. But again, I think this comes back, because if you criticize U.S. foreign policy, inevitably you're called a Russian asset and a Putinist. But I think it's important to acknowledge what the reason for that sort of association is, or why, for instance, RT did have voices like Tulsi Gabbard or Jill Stein on, and that's because they're talking about easing tensions with Russia. That naturally, Russia doesn't like U.S. hegemony. I don't like it either for different reasons. But there's no secret they're not getting paid off to do that. It's just the enemy of my enemy is my friend sometimes, and that's why I worked there. And as John said, most of the work we didn't have. I never said anything pro-Putin in my time there at all.
Dude, that show was such a service to the American public in terms of using satire to actually get real information out about what's going on in our own country, and doing it funded by. You think I prefer that it was funded by Russia? Of course not, but. There weren't exactly a lot of other options to really be that anti-establishment, that anti-corporate, that anti-war, that anti-advertising, that anti-surveillance, that just pro-populist, actual real leftism. Yeah. There was no place else to do it. So I actually really think that there was something very punk rock about it, where it was just like, we'll jump into the pit, we'll do it here, because we don't exactly have a ton of time to wait for St. Jude Children's Hospital to fund our TV fucking show. You know what I mean?
After they cure cancer, St. Jude will have extra money for us. Yeah, please hire us, St. Jude.
But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I'm sure St. Jude is evil in some way. I just have a sense that they do bad stuff behind the scenes.
I hope not, for the love of
God. But to rebut this, Tulsi goes on The View, and she has to, and when you put that in full context, you actually understand. And you look at what happened in 2020. Jill Stein didn't even run. Tulsi did not run as a third-party candidate. It just goes to show how... I don't even know if she was... Yeah, oh, sorry. It just shows how delusional Hillary Clinton is, and still just extremely embittered and angry about 2016, and she just feels wronged. And so she's coming up with these
I don't know if it's delusional. I don't think it's delusional. I think she's just a straight-up liar. I think it's just... that's the line. Russia, Russia, Russia is the line. And that's what the corporate Democrats are going to cling to. Because what are they going to say? What are they going to say? Listen, American people, we're corporate whores. We're at the behest of the military-industrial complex now. We are pro-surveillance of you. We don't care about you. We don't respect you. Vote for us.
Yeah, I mean, I think she probably believes her own. I think most people believe their own bullshit.
I don't think because the Steele dossier, all the stuff, the 360 fusion, all of the origins of the lie of Russiagate was laid out as an excuse to say why the Democrats lost that 2016 election. So they purposefully created Russiagate. Therefore, she can't believe that it's real, I don't think.
I think she has found some she has a million rationalizations for 2016, none of which are I did a bad job. And
I don't think the perpetrators of the Russiagate nonsense actually believe that it's real.
Really? I mean
that's my.
But even after the was it the Barr memo, they were still like, well, that doesn't. There's to this day they'll still.
Of
argue
course, that doesn't mean they really believe it.
I think many of them do. I don't know how many. I mean, maybe there's.
I don't think Hillary Clinton believes that it's real. I think she's more devious than that.
Okay. I mean, that's cooler if that's true, I think.
I'll have to look into it before we do the Hillary episode or the episodes because Hillary will be
Oh yeah, she's going to be a 7-parter.
I do want to say, Tulsi running his third party made no sense because Trump has a loyal base. Tulsi is doing pretty poorly in the Democratic primary. We saw no evidence of her. Like, she wouldn't have gotten any votes. It would have been a joke. She might have done worse than the Green Party. And also, there's no evidence that she was planning on that. So it does seem like Hillary kind of made that up or was paranoid or whatever.
Right. But Tulsi rebuts it on The View. She goes on, and Whoopi's hosting, kind of playing neutral, and then Joy Behar is kind of like the bad cop. She's really grilling her on this, and Tulsi says, "I am a patriot, a strong and intelligent woman of color." She mentions 9/11, and Joy Behar goes hard, saying that Nazis like Richard Spencer support Tulsi Gabbard. And
my theory is, if once you go on Rogan enough, a bunch of Nazis are going to support you. They just love Rogan.
But she, brings her point across and at this point has called Hillary Clinton the queen of warmongers, and had to condemn Hillary Clinton in tweet form. Because I think part of it was like misreported, right? What Hillary Clinton had said, she accused her of. There was like a misquote, I believe.
I don't know if I have a misquote. I mean, the thing that we had the quote from what she said on Pluff.
All right, never mind. I'll take that. I just remember this story being there was which.
You might be right. I mean, I only found so much.
Okay,
there's not a lot of books on this stuff. So
yeah, but she calls the accusations outrageous and offensive. And does end up suing Hillary Clinton for these remarks. And I remember it was very hard to serve her the paperwork because she's Hillary Clinton. But legal experts said that it was not likely that this would succeed, given in the U.S., we have First Amendment and actual malice standards are pretty high. So eventually it was dropped in May of 2020. But probably did its job, which is just get more attention for Tulsi Gabbard.
Well, I mean, the Clintons have murdered so many people and not been held accountable. I doubt like a libel suit is going to get them.
Yeah.
Well, they got Al Capone for taxes after he murdered a bunch of people.
Well, as Gabbard, I think brought this up, right? That or no, this was you that Hillary Clinton after the Lewinsky scandal was telling Bill to that's what had her talk to him for the first time in months was to get him to bomb Serbia.
That's a Queen of the Warmongers move. So that's something
true.
Hillary talked about in her book, Hard Choices. I believe it's in. I haven't read the book, but the
Hillary
article
herself.
is saying that it's from Hillary.
How can I leverage this public humiliation of my husband to get more war to happen? Oh my God.
Yeah, but she has a turn after the election. She becomes a Trumpist, but before that, it's she doesn't qualify for any of the debates post November 2019 because of the polling requirements, and she's still in the race in March, when it's like basically even Warren has, I think, dropped out at this point. So it's just Biden, Bernie, and Tulsi, and people are understandably like, why is she sticking it out? The delegates she had did not let her participate in the debate between in mid-March.
So the America Samoa primary is fairly early on, and for whatever reason, she is Samoan ancestry, and she was born in Samoa. And Mike Bloomberg, they love him in Samoa. He probably spent so much money, but he wins the Samoan primary, and she gets 2 delegates, and that's the only 2 that she gets. But that qualifies for her for some debates, and she's the second woman of color ever to win delegates after Shirley Chisholm.
Yeah, I do at least think so. She was not included in the debate between Bernie and Biden, but I think if there had been more of those, and had she been included, because the Super Tuesday, South Carolina, things aren't going well for Bernie, and then COVID hits, and eventually there's primaries where straight up he's having to tell people, please don't go out and vote because you could get sick and die. And the Biden campaign is saying, no, let's keep the election date, go in person and vote. This is like at the beginning of the pandemic. So that is part of how Biden won the nomination.
Biden ignoring COVID, so unlike him.
Yeah. But around that point, there was Tulsi was 49% of Americans. Oh, let's hold for a second. Hello.
Hey, man.
Hey, you guys almost done?
Yep, we're almost done. Sorry.
Hi.
So in the spring of 2020, 49%, according to one poll, says they think Tulsi should be included in the debates with Sanders and Biden, and her supporters accuse the DNC and the media of trying to shut her down. I think it would have helped to have her in one of those debates because, I mean, when it came down to Bernie and Biden, there was just one debate, and Bernie just could not land a punch. Like, you could tell he kind of knew it was over. I think he was counting on Biden just being senile, having a performance like he ultimately did as president against Trump last summer.
And they were like socially distanced during the debate. That debate was weird.
Yeah, I think that, as many have speculated, Biden was probably given some pills or something, but he does beat Bernie in the debate pretty decisively. So if you had an attack dog, because Bernie, this is one of his flaws, some people call it a strength, that he just does not hit very hard against people, his opponents, at least the ones he's running against for president in the Democratic primaries. So if you had Tulsi there, maybe she would have gone a little harder against Biden. Then again, once she drops out, which is while Bernie's campaign is still active, she endorses Biden, which to me was just the all the supporters saying, "Oh, she's actually to the left of Bernie." I think that kind of settles it. That and the healthcare stuff. She's defending the her healthcare plan. Eventually came out, and it was basically kind of just an improved Obamacare. It was not single payer.
Yes, she has a little bit of centrist in her, and the religious conservative. I don't really trust her as a full left person, but I understand on foreign policy, there's things to like.
Yeah. As we're wrapping up here, why did she turn to the right? What happened? She on October 11th, 2022, she announced on Twitter that she's leaving the Democratic Party, accusing its leadership of, quote, cowardly wokeness, anti-white racism, hostility to people of faith and spirituality, and dragging us closer to nuclear war. At least one of those is true.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. At least one of those tracks.
She says this isn't the same party that she joined back in the day.
It probably was, though.
Yeah. And the first episode of her podcast is about why she's leaving the Democratic Party. She brings up wokeness. She also brings up gun control and says, she's making this argument that, like, agree or disagree with Trump, that's half the country, and the Democrats are totally contemptuous of half the country, and that's reason enough to oppose them. And sort of in that is the idea, she's not necessarily, like, extremely pro-Second Amendment, but she is reacting to sort of some of the more maximalist positions, one of which is from her old friend, Beto O'Rourke, who said that in one of the debates in 2020 primaries, yes, we will take away your AR-15. So she seizes on that, and I have a theory here we'll probably explore more in the Patreon half. There's something going on with her and Beto, because they were in Congress together. They went on a camping trip. He refused to criticize her in 2020 when he was running, and he was, more of a centrist, and the easy thing would be to attack Tulsi. But he's like, well, she's a veteran. And now she's singling out of all the Democrats who have said stuff on guns, she wants to talk about Beto. So maybe there was some love lost between them.
I could see Nancy Pelosi like looking at them and being like, I can breed the greatest establishment politician ever. Because yeah, on paper, yeah, and you'd be so tall also.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think this kind of goes to like what I'm saying, like believing your own bullshit, because she does have principles. They're not mine, but they're she believes something, and she has concluded that the best way to affect them is through the Trump administration and being a Republican. And the other stuff, the positions she's left behind, she doesn't really care about them anymore necessarily. Or maybe she's just like, she is a totally cynical operator who has never believed anything from the outset and just is amazing at like seeing the chessboard and thinking 5 moves ahead. And she, in like 2016, was like, I'm going to be not in this next Trump administration, but give it 8 years, and there's going to be another one, and I'm going to be in that one.
They need a nominee for assuming Trump wouldn't run again or we have elections or whatever. But yeah, they need another nominee because J.D. Vance doesn't have a lot of riz. I listened to her book. I listened to her on Rogan a bunch. I listened to a bunch of episodes of her podcast. I just find her very off-putting. She says a lot of things I don't like, so it's hard for me to think the best of her. Though it's also hard for me to understand what's in her head because she's kind of someone who doesn't let herself be vulnerable, and she's kind of behind a mask the whole time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. There's a ton of stuff I don't agree with her on, but I think as DNI, maybe she's going to push back against the CIA a little bit.
I hope so. That'd be cool.
That would be cool. And a lot of the other shit that she believes, she's not really in a position now that it even really matters.
Yeah.
You know? Like, I think, who do you think would have been a better Secretary of State, her or Marco Rubio?
I guess her in some respects. I mean, they're both bad in different ways.
Yeah. So I don't know.
Sorry for her attention to detail. Yeah, he is someone who like can follow details and stuff. So at least he's like a competent administrator. I don't like him though, but yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he's like a straight up neocon.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely.
You know, his whole career.
Yeah. Although he's now changing his tune. It's more of this weird kind of Trumpist realism thing. He's saying that the U.S. it's with the time has come for a multipolar world. Rubio is saying, which is surreal.
By the way, the Vanquished TikTok got to hear that first. So yeah, join our TikTok at Vanquished Pod. Because Anders is making straight to camera videos. We're giving you a little extra nuggets.
Yes, thank you for the shout out.
Nice.
But as we're rounding out here, one thing that is raised often about Tulsi, I'm not going to comment on it one way or another, but some people say she's very hot. And is there such a thing as being too hot to be president of the country?
Well, when I was into her and Manic and thought we had a special connection, she was doing a lot of HIIT exercises and posting them, high intensity interval training.
Rogan mentions in one of the episodes that he watches her workout videos. I didn't go look at any, but it's definitely something that he brings up.
But yeah, she was kind of doing some of that workout video stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
By far our best president at surfing. I couldn't picture Lincoln on a surfboard, but yeah. But
the surfing's kind of cool too, you know.
Yeah.
Definitely cool.
I mean, whenever we have a president who's under like 50, it's like, oh, they're young and like still kind of sexy. And then she's a very good looking person. So it is something to like think about.
Right.
Because the women who've been 60 and over. And yeah, she would be breaking the ceiling of like a president who's kind of young and more in their prime looks wise.
Yeah. And, we usually end like envisioning the counterfactual. What if she had won, I guess, in 2020? She went up against Trump. I mean, I think that was anybody could have won that during COVID. Even Joe Biden could have beat Trump during COVID. But you bring up, because I didn't even consider this, is she's now, and I feel dumb that I didn't even have this thought, that now she's poised to run for president in 2028 as a Republican.
Yeah, I mean, I'm 41, so she's like 43. So yeah, like she can run, I mean, till she's like 80, she can run like 5 more times.
Yeah. And, because the alternative, what's going to be J.D. Vance.
Rubio is Rizless. Okay, Rubio's a loser.
Yeah,
we know
he's
that.
Been there, done that.
Yeah, Trump's not ever going to endorse Rubio for president.
Yeah. I mean, I've been saying it only gets weirder so far in the 21st century. Like the next president has always been like a weirder option. You know, we had a really, really dumb guy. We had a black guy. We had
TV host,
deranged TV host, and then we had a guy just falling asleep, and then you had the other guy again. Like, that's absurd. So I don't think it's going to be like a straight-laced Marco Rubio type. It's going to be someone who's out of the box, like Tulsi.
Possibly we go dog. Yeah, we go full Airbud. We've been kind of going Airbud with Trump. We just say a dog can, no rule in the Constitution that a dog can't be president.
Yeah.
Yeah, she may be president one day.
Yeah. Well, what do you think it's going to be like?
No regime change for it. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. No regime change words. Lots of aloha. No, I don't know. I mean, let's see. Maybe it would be good for foreign policy. Maybe it would be good for, pushing back against surveillance domestically. How she's going to be in terms of like cutting social services and stuff like that. I have no idea where she stands on that stuff. Really, it's hard to know now because even the things that she was saying in the 2020 campaign, that may not be where she's at now with it. Now that she's in like the Trump camp.
I could see her putting what do you call it, trans people and Muslims in camps. Anyone who can't surf, I don't trust her.
She puts Muslims and trans people in camps because they can't surf.
Yeah, just like she's like, Fred, you can't swim, you're going to the camp too.
You're going to the camp too.
What if that's the litmus test? Then, if you're Muslim and trans, that's your only way out of the camp is to be a really good surfer.
You got to surf out. Yeah, they got boards and like high waves.
Yeah,
that's the only way you can get out. Oh my God.
Well, Tulsi Gabbard, check out our next episode. Is going to be on the bonus feed. We'll dig more into the details, talk about DNI stuff, her hearing, her early life. Check that out, patreon.com/thevanquished. JFOD, thanks for coming on. Where can people find you and your stuff?
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me, guys. This was fun. I have some shows coming up. I have this one-man show called I'm on Lithium, a comedic journey about bipolar disorder, about a manic episode I had in Dublin, Ireland in 2008, where I thought the CIA and descendants of the Nazis were trying to assassinate me, but I was being protected by the IRA and Bono from U2. I'm going to be performing it in D.C. on Sunday, March 9th at the D.C. Improv. You can go to jfodlovesyou.com. That's JFOD lovesyou.com to get tickets, and I'd love to see some D.C. people come out for that.
Did you write the title of your website to Tulsi?
Wait, what?
JFOD Loves You. Was that written to Tulsi?
Well, in spirit, yeah.
Okay, nice, yeah.
Oh, and also you can follow me on Instagram at JFODLovesYou.
All right, and we are at Vanquished Pod on social media.
And YouTube.
At Anders Lee here on social media, at Orange Freddy G. Thank you all. It's been Vanquished. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of The Vanquished. If you want the full thing, because there is more, please go to patreon.com/thevanquished, where you can get the rest of this episode as well as our full episode catalog. You can support our work as well as annoy us in the comments.